It is my privilege that we can continue our study about the oneness in Christ. We have today the subtitle Unity and Broken Relationships. What is disunity? Disunity is broken relationships. So the first relationship that was broken was by Adam, who wanted to have another identity than God gave him. He wanted to become God. He was tempted by Lucifer, the first one, the instigator of disunity, who wanted nothing else than take God's identity. And so he wanted to be more than just a creature. And so all the problems of disunity arise from the wrong identity. Because that's the only place. If Lucifer would have stayed an angel, he would have never had any problems in the universe, never ever sin would have entered. If Adam and Eve would have never listened to Lucifer, to be tempted to want to be more than a human, more than a creature, wanting to be gods, they would have never needed to mistrust God. But they did. And now we all inherit a wrong identity. And that's why our relationship cannot work well. We go into our relationship with the wrong reason. If it's spouse, father, mother, children, pets, it doesn't matter. Do we have them for the purpose to love them in order to give them something? Or do we love them in order to receive something from them that is to be loved? Now, some people say both, but there is no both. You cannot have two directions. You either go forward or backwards at the same time. You can go after one. But whenever persons go into relationship, they do not go to give. They think they give from themselves because of the wrong identity, and so they need to be loved. That's so confusing, so not even explainable. That's why the Bible says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. But you see, the wickedness doesn't look like wickedness, because the error says, I am dependent for love from the acts and existence of others. So our whole problems come because we think the other around us owe us something. They must give us something. They must be there for us. We don't see the law by which I have to take in order to give, and I would be totally free. All the problems that humans have come from this broken way of relationships. No matter if the relationship goes good for a while, it's still broken. It's still wrong. Because it is built on a wrong foundation. That Bible verse that converted me, when I was struggling, when I wanted to find another spouse that could love me better than my one, was when God spoke to me through the words of Isaiah 49:18. Oh, that thou hadst hearkened to my commandments, then had thy peace been as a river, and thy righteousness. And in Romanian, this word righteousness is translated happiness. And it's the same thing. You know, righteousness and happiness is equal. As the waves of the sea. Because nothing else can make us happy than righteousness. So righteousness and happiness must be the same word. And yes, they transport the same idea. They transport love. Because out of love comes righteousness, and out of love comes happiness. So I was wanting something from another person to satisfy my need. Because my selfish nature, the idea that I am God, says to me, my spiritual needs are satisfied by what others are doing or even not doing. I believed that I needed to receive harmony. I believed that I needed someone to understand me. I believed that I need someone to listen to me. Do we really have that need? Or is it switched to this wrong identity? The real need is that I should listen to others. Because love does not search its own. Love does not need understanding for itself. Love searches to understand the other. But we haven't got it. Because we believe it's right to be understood. Yes, if we have to do some business together, then we have to communicate to be understood. But it's not for us. But I wanted it for me, for my happiness. I thought that if someone understands me, what a good feeling that would be for me. But can I go into the mind of another one to know that he understands me or not? People are desperate to think that others need to fulfill their needs. And so they must keep them even alive. We cannot let people die because we still need them. That's why we have the whole cult and worship of death people. That's why we go and do service for them. That's why we remember them again and again, because we think we still need them. Some people go after their spouse died 4 times a day to the grave for years. Why? You cannot make him alive because you don't need him. If you would need him, you could make him alive. But God knew that we don't need people around us for us. We just need them that together we should serve him in love, because love serves. So we don't need them, but we think we need them. I need to be loved, respected, honored, praised. People are just sitting on the throne and say, he didn't respect me, he should do it. Oh, who are you? That someone owes you respect. Who are you that someone needs to praise you? I have patients that are very sick because their parents never thanked them for their service. I say, who you are that someone should bow down before you to thank you. You see how terrible our mind is messed up by this wrong identity. And then we go in and say, others are not allowed to do me wrong. I have to put them boundaries. I say, who are you? Who made you higher than me to put me boundaries? Who are you that want to rule over others? You must be someone greater than me if you want to put me boundaries. I judge and condemn them when they are doing the wrong because I'm convinced they did it to me. You see, a lady said she was very upset because her husband killed herself. And she said, why did he do that to me? I said, did he do that to you? Do you owe his life? Did he kill your life? You see, friends, we have a position that is so bad, but it doesn't look like. When a person comes to me and says, my husband betrayed me or my wife betrayed me, I said, did they did it to you? How come? Since when do you have authority over them that they should be surrendered to you and give an account to you? Are you a judge? Have God put you there on a podest for this? Do you have a authority? We will see that God put authority there. But do you have an authority to claim anything for yourself? People think that their time is there, circumstances are there, money and goods are there. They don't know that. And those people whose home were burnt in Paradise in California just recently, they know that they don't owe their goods because they are all burnt. They know that their money is not theirs. I never had money, I never will have as a possession of me because they're not mine. I just use them. I take to give. I take time and give it. I take goods and give it. But there's nothing that I can keep because they're not mine. I have no control over them. I think the more power I have over others, the better I think my needs are fulfilled. The higher people serve me, I think the better I am. Oh, poor me, if I think like this. So, all the problems of man originate in the error of his spirit that he thinks I'm God And so stress we have only because of this. Anxiety we have only because we want to control that what is not under control. Conflicts and wars, again, we have only because we want to rule. All kinds of disease, thank God for them, come because we want to control that which is not under our control. If God would have not given us depression, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, inflammation, and whatever, we would never learn that something is wrong in us. Because we would see the good deeds that we do out of selfish nature. But everything we do out of this error is wrong. Because it comes from trust in a created being. We are dependent on a creature. And dependency on humans is that breaks our relationship, that brings all the disasters. It is that one and only sin. And from this one, everything comes out. So in our heart here we have our cortex, and then we have our spirit, and there above the spirit we have our subconscious and consciousness in our spirit, and from our subconscious, from our heart, we have expectations of others, including God and myself. We have claims towards others, including God and myself. We think a gain is when others fulfill our claims and others fulfill our expectations. Then we are the most happy. Are we? And when they don't do it, then we are the most miserable ones. And we see and pity ourselves because we are discontent, we are very angry, we strive, we control, we force, we stress, anxiety. Why? And our body gets sick because we try to force them, thinking they owe us something. We claim they did it to me. There is no greater deception than to think that someone did something to you. But if I'm a created being, then how much expectation I have to others, how much claims I have toward God and to others. I know that the only gain is what I do. That's what says here, oh, that thou hast hearkened to my commandments, then had thy peace been as a river and thy righteousness as the waves of the sea. But if you don't do them, then you have a loss. And that's the problem. But if we would do them, we would be content with others when they do mistakes, when they do us wrong. We would not consider that personally because we would say, oh, poor you did God wrong. Can I help you somehow? We could still stay in peace. We could still stay in joy, in patience, in goodness, and we would be healthy in our body. The only right way of love is when we take it from God. But in order to take the love from God and give that only love, there is no other love, is we need to have a change of identity. With our wrong identity, another source is there. And so we need to see what would be the change if it would be changed. If I am a child of God, I have my trust and faith in God, then I take from Him, and everything I give is nice. My spiritual needs are satisfied not by what others do, by what I do. I don't need my beloved dead relatives. I don't even need to remember them. But if I remember them, I have no heartache because they do not owe me anything. They don't need to be alive for me to be present there. Because mourning is not because we mourn our dead and say, oh, sorry, poor guy died. No, we say, oh, sorry, poor me, I have no one that loves me anymore. I'm lonely now. I am not in need of being loved, respected, honored, and praised. Others are allowed to do me wrong, to lie, betray, because they never do it to me. I do not need to judge or condemn them because I know whatever pain someone inflicts on me, it's not mine. It's against my Creator and Redeemer. I cannot control what I do not owe. Time, money, people, animals, they are not mine. So I never try to do that again, hopefully. I do not need power over others. What would it be if I would have that power? How much would a sandcorn be more than a billion of sandcorn that shout to him and say, praise, and lift you up? Would you then be more than a sandcorn? It's so unreasonable what we want and what we do out of that sinful nature. But out of that right identity, everything would be nice. How much stress? No stress. How much anxiety? It would be a thing of yesterday. Conflicts and war would be no more. All kinds of diseases, because they are the result of the wrong identity, will be away. We won't remember depression. We won't have cancer. We won't have diabetes. High blood pressure would be a thing of the past, and all inflammation and disease would disappear by one single change, which is the only one that needs to be done. That is, who am I? So identity determines dependency. Man was made to be dependent on God. There is never a choice to be independent. But everything he gave was freedom. All our actions were made to be free. I could work, I could eat, I could drink, I could sleep, I could speak, I could smile, run, walk, whatever. Everything that I did was right. I would do it out of one source, many actions. If the cause is good, the effect is good as well. How much wrong can you do out of being a created being in dependence of God? There is no wrong that anyone can do. And how much good can anyone do out of the wrong identity? None. Let's read that in Luke 6 from verse 44. For every tree is known by his own fruit. For of thorns men do not gather figs, nor of bramble bush gather they grapes. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good. And an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. Now we have to see, what does Jesus mean by the good man and the bad man? So the good man is the one that knows who he is. The bad man or the wrong man is the one that thinks he's God and he's not. So does anyone has a treasure? No. But from this way, they must cling to someone, they must take from someone. And then they bring out the treasure, because you have to take and give. So the man that is connected to the devil through his wrong identity must bring out the evil works of the devil. And the man who is connected to God brings out the good works of God. So there is no change, or there is no thing that out of a good thing something bad comes out, or of a wrong identity something comes out good. So if a man is in his heart with the wrong identity, he takes from Lucifer and he gives, but all his actions are not free. He works, he eats, he drinks, he sleeps in a deception, and he does not even know sometimes that he's not free. Only when he comes into a situation where something is taken away from him, then he sees his captivity, and then he takes himself captive. So if the cause is bad, the actions or the effects are also bad. Now, when relationships are broken, we can see that that's something wrong. We know, okay, it's my own selfish nature that came out, that made me angry, or whatever actions I did wrongfully. But what is it with the good relationships? What is it with the good deeds that humans do? Where do they come from? You see, when relationships are good, they might come out as well as from the wrong identity. And so only when they are under stress, under difficulties, you really see what fruit the tree has. Because selfish nature, the I am God idea, brings good fruits out, which look very nice. But God says to Isaiah, our righteousness is like a filthy coat, a filthy rag. We have good deeds. They're righteous deeds. They look like righteous. But why are they filthy? Because they come out of a filthy well. Can there come something clean out of an unclean? Or can there something come unclean out of a clean? No, it's not possible. This is so basic that we should separate them. Out of our sinful nature, out of the wrong identity, we can do no good thing, no matter how good it looks. And here is the deception most strong. That's why God must bring difficulties in each one's life. If He doesn't bring that, if He does not have some people who come against Him, or if He has not something going on wrongfully, He would never understand that He is an unfree person, that He is a captive, and He will destroy Himself when others do Him wrong, because He considers the wrong against Himself. So the greatest danger is when all things go well. The greatest danger is when we think we do it all good. You see, the Pharisees in Jesus' time were in this great deception. They did all the right things outwardly. They ate the right food. They were vegan. I mean, speaking from the Pharisees of today. But we take them from that time. They did not commit adultery. They just went to church. They read their Bible daily. They did their work. They went on their mission trips. They did all the good things. And Jesus tells them, you are graves painted outwardly. I translated from German, I think. You are painted graves. You are outsidely right, but your righteousness is a filthy rag because you do those righteous actions that look righteous from a wrong motivation. So here we must be aware of the greatest danger today to be lost are not the sinners, are not those relationships who are broken, but those in which things look so perfect, in which just things are okay. That's why I love, I must say this, disease. Not because disease is a good thing, no. But without disease, we would not discover that our good deeds come from an evil heart. Because no one gets sick when he does an evil thing. He only gets sick when he wants to impose the good on others. He has a good intention. He wants to do the good, but he must fight to impose it on others. He is himself deceived as a victim, thinking that all the heaviness are in his life. He thinks he must bear all those things. He doesn't see the deception because he just looks to the outward things of his life and he says, well, I did this right, I did this right, I did this right, and everything he does right. So how can he understand that something is wrong? This is why I love the very plain words that make us clear that there is a sign, or better to say a test, by which we can test everything. And that is a test of love. Let's read from chapter 13, 1 Corinthians. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have no love, I am become as a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have no love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burnt and have no love, it profiteth me nothing. So let's make the difference between love and selfishness, because out of identity comes either love. If I'm a child of God, I take from God, I must take from God, there's no other way. If I'm a God, then I take from Lucifer, I take from other humans, and that comes out. But you see, now comes good things out of Lucifer, Because he would make us all to speak with tongues of angels. If he could, he would make us all kind. He also would like to give us all gifts, the prophecy gift. He would bring us to great understanding of mysteries. He would just give us all knowledge and also faith to do miracles. And he would even bring us to the point to sell everything that we have for a good cause. And even go into a war and let ourselves killed because of a good cause. Knowing that we are going to be lost. Because if that is not changed, we have a great problem. And we must understand that it must be changed. But before it can be changed, it must be seen. So what's the test? The test is very simple. The one you take from, since trusting is unconscious, we might not be aware that the good deed that we do out of the devil or out of humans or just to please humans, just to be there to be accepted. We might serve like Martha. Now, Martha was a great servant, but of whom? So, here is that great deed that you do. How can you know out of which well you do it? Because it says, he who has the good treasure will do it out of the good treasure of his heart. And the good treasure of your heart is God, and the evil treasure is the devil or the humans. So that you don't know because it's subconsciously. But what you can ask yourself consciously, and then also can ask yourself, because you trust someone first, for whom do I do the thing? For whom do I eat? You see, I tell sometimes people, if you drink a cup of water for yourself, it's righteousness or filth of filthy rags. It is a good thing that still comes with an evil motivation. So will it avail anything? Will it bring anything to you if you drink a cup of water for yourself? Only if you drink the cup of water for God's body, for God's sake, it is a right thing to do. You see, it's the same thing. A cup of water, something bad in it? No. But if you do it for you, it's bad. And so here comes the great, great thing that we must check ourselves. For whom do I do it? I read here from verse 13 in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. For whether we be beside ourselves, it is to God, or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. For the love of Christ constraineth us, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then were all dead, and that he died for all, that they which live, and this is now, should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again. When Jesus in John 6 offered himself as the bread of life, he said to them, he said here I read from verse 53. Then Jesus said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Yes, when you are born with the wrong identity, there is no life. We are not connected to Jesus. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead. He that eateth of this bread shall live forever. So, the main point that I want to show is He who eats this bread will not live for himself anymore. He will live for God. Because that's why God made us. He made us with a purpose. He set the need for which we should live, work, as stewards of this earth. So He gave us the job. So we do out of love everything for Him who owes everything. Since God does nothing for Himself, every creature can do nothing for itself. So in this way, all of us need to be aware, for whom do I do it? This is the question. If I go to a mission trip for me, it's filthy rags. It's a righteousness of a filthy rags. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. But it will avail nothing. If I go to a conference to be fed there and I go for me, I go for nothing. If I do any great work, save the life of a patient, I cannot save a life, but let's see, I would do it. At least it would look like as a doctor. And I do it for me. It's nothing worth it. Because there is one thing that counts. What is the well where all springs out? So a lady once said, because her husband killed himself, and she said, she was so angry, she says, why did he do that to me? Was he playing God or was she playing a human? You see, whenever you think that someone did something to you, it's wrong. Because no one can do to you anything wrong. Because you don't owe yourself. It's not about you. You are there as a servant of God. And the Bible is so clear in this, and the law is so clear, that everyone that does anything must do it as out of love. And love never seeks its own. So God did a work for us so that we can get away from this. The first Adam brought us the false identity. Jesus had to become the first Adam, taking over the wrong identity and crucified it on the cross. It must die. It must be put to death. And He raised up from the death as the second Adam, having the new identity by which we all live. So, if the identity is not changed, if the cross doesn't make that, no matter what you do, it is wrong. No matter if you have the best relationship, no matter if you sacrifice everything, no matter ever. Nicodemus was a righteous man. Paul was a righteous man. The rich young ruler was a righteous. Outsidely, they were all righteous people. But it was nothing than filthy rags because it came out of a selfish nature. They were not born again. Only after we are born again, only when we have that new birth, that change in our heart that first destroys the wrong and is replaced with the right identity, with the new identity, only then life springs in to us. I will give a short example. I will speak about this in our next presentations about forgiveness, because it would be having too much to have forgiveness including. And in our next presentation where we speak about worship, we will understand and will include forgiveness, because it's there in the prayer of God. We have to forgive. So God did institutions here on earth. He made countries and states, church and marriage. And He gave these institutions power, authority, as administrators of His laws. We'll see this a little bit more in the next presentation, but I want just to put marriage as God's institution in the center here at the end of this presentations. So, marriage is God's own invention. It's His institution. He invented it. And now let's see how marriage look if two gods get married. You understand the problem if two people get married that has the identity in them that they're gods. So they get married for whom? of course, for themselves. They want their needs to be satisfied by the other one. They want the other one should have certain things. He should not do them to run away or to betray them. Actually, they marry to fight. This is reality. That's why we face so much problems in marriage today. People are not anymore able for relationship because everyone searches just his own. Read in Isaiah 53, that contrast where Jesus is giving his life and all other humans just are searching for themselves. So, if you are marrying like a God, you marry for you. And it doesn't matter which religion you have outside, it's still wrong. You only can marry the right way if you're a creature. And if a creature or two creatures marry, they put together the love that they take from God. They have no expectations for themselves from the other. They only have expectations to fulfill the work together. That's why they search this out and find the right partner with whom they can combine the power that they take from God to work well together. Because not all can work well together, and some want this work, some the other. So it's best if they match in having the right identity and also being able to do the same work, or having can complement each other for doing this work. So they don't marry for themselves. They enter into marriage to fulfill God's plan of working and multiplication. They don't have the idea, I have to get married for me. If you're a creature, you do everything out of love because you take from God. And since God does not do anything for himself, you also won't do nothing for yourself. How would that marriage look like? That would be the fulfillment of fulfillments. Because this is how Adam and Eve were. They were both creatures. They were equal as creatures. They had different administrative jobs in the institution of marriage, but that didn't take anything from their equality away. And so they put all things together, working for one purpose, because they were both made for the same purpose. And they had to complement each other. And since Adam never thought of himself, neither Eve thought of herself, that marriage was perfect. Until selfish nature took over. And then the marriage wasn't good anymore. Then blaming started. You're the wife. You see, she is a problem. Then there were two gods that were fighting suddenly because they were changed in their hearts. Now, can a God and a human marry? I mean, you see why the Bible says we should not marry with someone if we're not united in identity. That most people think, it's enough faith. You know, you have the same faith outwardly. It won't work. It must in the heart be the same faith. It must be in the heart be the same treasure where you eat from, that the marriage should work. Because he who enters into the marriage as God will expect something from the other. He who enters into the marriage as a creature, he won't do that. But it won't be a functional marriage. It still can work. It must not be separated. The Bible says if someone converts, he becomes from a God, a creature, he might do his job very well, even though the other is still expecting and is unhappy, but he can be happy still in the same marriage. Because as long as the borders that God set, the laws that God set in marriage are not broken, the marriage can still function. If one is converted and the other not. If one has changed or started to change his identity and the other is still having his full wrong identity. But yes, there must be taken measurements when the other doing wrong. But then you do measurement not for yourself. You don't go out of marriage because you cannot bear it anymore. You just go out of marriage because of a principle. Oh, you broke the law. Yes, I'm sorry for you. But it's over now. Because How shall the other who break the commandment ever realize what he did if he has no consequence? How would David have ever understood his sin if he would have not seen the costs of it? We must see that. If not, we are not aware how bad it is what we do. That's why if really someone loves his spouse, he will take measurements for the benefit of God's cause and for his sake to be saved, even though it's for her or for him. Looks like a loss or a disadvantage. Because love doesn't think on itself. Friends, if we put that measurement on our hearts and look into the mirror, how many of us are on the right path? Now there is hope, even though one lady once told me and says, if your message is right, most people are lost. Yes, she's right. The message is right. And most people are lost from those who think they are saved. But there is hope when we realize it. When we ask ourselves and look in the mirror and say, oh, today I ate for me, today I played for me, today I did this for me. It must not be wrong. It's still sin. It's still a righteousness of a filthy rag. It is something that will not open the doors of heaven, because in heaven there is no place for people that do anything out of themselves. For people who live the good things outwardly while inwardly they are raging wolves. There is no way for such a person to enter heaven. That's why God must bring us into difficulties, that He must show us our need. If someone dies in our family or if a disease comes, we must get aware that something very deep in us is wrong. And all our good works outside won't save us from that if they would have not been made out of the right motivation. So may God be merciful to us, that we realize today our terrible state and cry out for a Savior, to become humans that live not anymore for themselves, that everything they do for the sake of God and for the cause of man, like we read in 2 Corinthians 5. We do all out of God, and we serve God and want His people to be saved, to be done well. Oh, I long for that day when I'm going to be finished, when God, in cooperation with me, will get me to the point where I'm just a creature, where the evil nature, the evil identity is rooted out, and I just live out of love. What a great day that will be. I'm looking forward to it, longing and fighting that it might be soon accomplished. And I hope it's your will as well. Amen.